I sat on a massive rock, staring blankly at the sea of clouds rolling beneath the cliffs of Greenwood Mountain. My mind was a mess. 3 days ago, my soul had crossed over from Earth and hijacked this body. The original owner, a cultivator also named Sun E, had died from a cultivation accident, leaving me with his skin and all his memories. At first, I was thrilled. I thought I'd be like those main characters in web novels, waking up with a god-tier spiritual root, mastering forbidden techniques, and crushing my enemies. But reality slapped me hard. I'd spent 3 days looking for my cheat code, and I had nothing. No system, no legendary roots, no magical artifact to grow herbs, and zero family backing. I was as ordinary as it gets. In this world, talent is everything, and it's determined by the quality of your spiritual roots, not the quantity. I had 3: gold, wood, and fire, but they were all bottom-tier, low-grade roots. Most sects won't even look at someone like me because our cultivation speed is pathetic and the chance of reaching the foundation establishment stage is almost zero. The only reason I was in the Qingyun sect was because they had recently suffered a massive disaster and were desperate for warm bodies. At 21 years old, I was only at the 3rd level of qi refining. It was embarrassing. Even among the Chor disciples, I was the bottom of the barrel. I was just a tool to be squeezed for labor, no different from a 996 office worker back on Earth. In a world where the strong eat the weak, a low-level cultivator's life is worth less than a dog's. If I stayed like this, I'd never make it to old age. But I wasn't going to just accept that. Back on Earth, I was a man who survived decades of mortgages and car loans. I wasn't going to let a little lack of talent stop me. I was a researcher, a man of science. I had to save my own life. My first thought was to run away and find some ancient treasure, but I killed that idea instantly. The Qingyun sect was located in the Monster Chaos Prefecture. It was crawling with demons and rogue cultivators. A level 3 weakling like me wouldn't last 10 minutes outside the gates. I wasn't some lucky protagonist who could find treasure by tripping over a rock. That left me with one option: change things from the inside. But how? I had no skills, no power, and no backing. Then it hit me. I had modern knowledge. I knew about finance, communication technology, and manufacturing. The problem was that as a Chor disciple, I had no materials and no protector. If I invented something amazing, someone would just kill me and take it. I racked my brain for something simple but revolutionary. Then, a spark. To the west was the myriad demon forest, to the north the endless ice field, and to the south the infinite sea. These were forbidden zones where a cultivator's divine sense, their mental radar, was useless. Even powerful nascent soul masters died in there because they couldn't detect the high-level beasts or the deadly toxic insects hiding in the brush. They were flying blind. But what if I built a radar? A mechanical, technological radar that didn't rely on divine sense. It could detect hidden beasts, toxic bugs, and even mineral deposits. Back on Earth, I was a top-tier researcher who had specialized in radar tech. I was also a master DIY hobbyist. If I could get my hands on some materials and a blacksmith, I could combine cultivation logic with science to build a scanner. The problem remained. I was still just a nobody. I couldn't go into the forest alone, and I needed a way to protect my invention from being stolen. I needed a backer. I needed a way to break out of this trap. As I sat there plotting, 3 loud bell tolls echoed from the sect's main peak, vibrating through the air. It was the signal for a major event. Usually, a Chor disciple like me wouldn't care, so I stayed put, lost in thought. Old son, you're hiding here slacking off again. I've been looking for you everywhere. A skinny young man in a tattered disciple robe came running toward me, panting. It was Guzi, one of the few people I knew here. Guzi, I asked, looking up. What are you looking for me for? Didn't I already finish my work for the day? I asked, looking at Guzi with a frown. Guzi was a Chor disciple just like me. We both had mediocre talent, both stuck at the 3rd level of qi refining, and we both managed the pharmacy at Qingmu Peak. We were brothers in misery, which made us close. Stop talking and move. Guzi grunted, grabbing my arm and pulling me along. If we're late, Manager Wong is going to skin us alive. What's the rush? I asked, stumbling behind him. You heard the bells from the main peak, didn't you? I'm not deaf, I retorted. But what does that have to do with us nobodies? Guzi leaned in, his voice urgent. Manager Wang said the ancestor is coming out of meditation in 3 days. He's going to pick a new sect leader for our Qinyan sect. We have to clean the entire place top to bottom. A new sect leader? I froze. I remembered now. In the 20 years since the sect fled to the chaotic demon county, we hadn't had a leader. Our only nascent soul ancestor had been in seclusion, healing from his wounds. The 5 golden core elders ran everything. I'd almost forgotten about it until now. I wonder who he'll pick. Guzi sighed as we walked. All 5 elders are staring at that seat like hungry wolves. Whoever gets it will soar to the heavens in a single bound. I'm so jealous. His words hit me like a lightning bolt. I stopped dead in my tracks. I slapped my forehead so hard it stung. That's it, I shouted. If I can grab the ancestor's leg and become the sect leader, I'll be the one soaring to the heavens. Think about it. Who had a bigger leg to lean on than a nascent soul expert? If I became the boss, I wouldn't have to worry about materials for my radar. I wouldn't have to worry about people stealing my tech. I'd have the best manuals, the best resources, and the best. Well, I was a gentleman, so I'd stop there. Guzi looked at me like I had grown a second head. What did you just say? You? Sect leader? I nodded seriously. Why not? If I get the position, I'll have everything. And hey, when one man rises, his followers rise too. I'll take care of you. Guzi stepped forward and smacked me across the face. What the hell was that for? I yelled, rubbing my cheek. I'm waking you up. Guzi rolled his eyes. Stop daydreaming. Look at yourself. You're a level 3 chi refining ant. You want to compete with golden core elders? You're looking for death. There isn't a single sect in the world led by someone at your level, let alone a chore disciple. I touched my face, looking thoughtful. I heard the ancestor is a decent, upright guy. He won't just kill people for no reason. Becoming sect leader is his decision alone. It's all about him. I looked at Guzi. Let me tell you something. If everyone thinks a plan is possible, don't touch it. That's my experience from the stock market back home. Be greedy when others are fearful. Who says a chi refining cultivator can't be a leader? I'm not going in without a plan. If there's even a 1 in 10,000 chance, it's worth a shot. Stock market? What are you even talking about? Guzi looked like he wanted to slap me again, but gave up. Just shut up and hurry. Don't say this sect leader stuff out loud, or you'll get us both killed. He turned and ran. I chased after him with a grin. A man without a dream is just a dried fish. If the ancestor was truly a righteous man, I just had to show him I could provide what he needed most. Even if I failed, he probably wouldn't kill me. I just needed to do my research first. Distinguish between a dream and a delusion, Guzi called back. You won't even be able to get close to the ancestor. I just smiled. Before today, I felt like my life in this world was a dead end. Now, I was going to play a high-stakes game. I needed to investigate the ancestor's personality and the temperaments of those 5 elders. If the ancestor was a bloodthirsty tyrant, I'd drop it. I wanted a promotion, not a funeral. I was crafting a plan that had never been seen in the history of cultivation. A level 3 chore disciple applying for the job of sect leader. People would call me insane, but they didn't understand the wisdom of Earth. 3 days later, as the sun began to rise, I stood outside the main peak hall. I was acting as a hall guard. I had swapped my old rags for a crisp, clean set of chore disciple robes. I looked sharp. I had spent the last 3 days researching, planning, and running scenarios in my head hundreds of times. The risk was massive, but the plan was solid. Normally, this guard duty belonged to 2 outer disciples. I had to spend a fortune to bribe one of them to let me take his spot. This was my only chance to get face-to-face with the ancestor. I told the guy I just wanted to show my face to the higher-ups to impress them. To pull this off, I had spent every coin I had and even borrowed money from every disciple I knew. Back on Earth, I had just escaped my debts by dying. Now, in this new world, I was buried in debt all over again. It was time to see if the gamble would pay off. For the past 2 days, I hadn't slept a wink. I was busy. I used snacks and small bribes to open doors, chatting up the older disciples to dig for dirt. It turned out the sect was a mess. Corruption was everywhere, and problems were piled high like mountains. A few spirit stones were all it took to get the real stories. I focused my investigation on the nascent soul ancestor and the 5 golden core elders. I dug into their backgrounds, their social circles, their pasts, and their personalities. Since most of this wasn't top secret, it was easy to gather, but it cost me a fortune in bribes. I learned that the ancestor, Qing Xian, was a rare breed in the cultivation world. He was actually a decent man. He wasn't bloodthirsty or cruel. He had been raised by the Qingyun sect since he was a child and felt a deep, bone-deep loyalty to the place. That was why the sect had been entrusted to him. Then there were the 5 elders, all at the mid-stage of the Golden Core realm. Elder Jin Zhu ran the Hall of Justice. He was impulsive and lacked a filter. Elder Qin Chu handled internal affairs. He was meticulous and loved to scheme. Elder Li Tai managed external affairs. He was a smooth talker who excelled at networking. Elder Han Yun was in charge of the Hall of Transmission. He was steady but quiet. Finally, there was Elder Yi Luo of the Chore Hall. He kept a low profile and knew the ins and outs of the manual labor. I took all this info and ran simulations in my head. I planned for every reaction. My strategy was simple. I was going to manage this sect like a modern corporation. Back on Earth, I wasn't an executive. I was a young researcher. I didn't have a business degree, but I'd seen enough to know how the gears turned. The Qingyun sect was stagnant and lifeless. A change in the system was all it needed to breathe again. Of course, there was the issue of resources, but I had a trump card, my plan for a detection radar. It would take time and the sect's full support to build, but it would change everything. I had been worried about being soul-searched, but my research gave me a relief. Cultivators rarely did that because it made breaking through to the next realm nearly impossible. I felt much safer knowing that. Soon, another outer disciple arrived at the hall. He looked at me, standing guard, and frowned. "Who are you? Where's Chu Yun?" I gave him a polite smile. Senior brother Chu Yun had something to attend to. I'm filling in for him today. He scanned me, saw I was just a level 3 chore disciple, and shrugged. He didn't care enough to ask more. Suddenly, streaks of light flashed across the sky. Powerful auras descended, hitting me like a physical weight. It felt like a boulder was resting on my shoulders. The Golden Core elders had arrived. I quickly lowered my head, playing dead. The 5 elders landed at the entrance. They didn't even glance at me. They just grunted at each other and marched inside. I could feel the tension between them. It was like a powder keg ready to blow. A moment later, a truly massive pressure dropped from the sky. The air around me felt like it had turned to solid ice. By the time I could react, a figure had already blurred past me into the hall. I didn't even see his face. When the pressure vanished, I let out a long breath. My heart was thumping against my ribs. For a second, I had felt the true power of a nascent soul master. I hesitated. My legs felt a bit weak. But then, I clenched my fists and gritted my teeth. I had to do this. The bigger the storm, the more expensive the fish. You can't get rich without taking a risk. Inside the hall, Ancestor Qing Xian took his seat at the head of the room. The 5 elders stood and bowed. "Greetings, Ancestor." Qing Xian looked grim. He waved a hand. "Sit. I've been in seclusion for 20 years, and it's time to settle this. Today, we choose a new sect leader. I won't watch this sect rot anymore. Whoever can make us grow will take the position." His eyes swept over the 5 men. They tried to look calm, but I could sense their excitement. Elder Jin Zhu jumped up first. "Master, I am willing to shoulder this burden. I will make the sect thrive." Elder Qin Chu wasn't far behind. "Master, you know my capabilities. Give me the chance to prove myself. I will lead us back to our peak." Then Li Tai stepped forward. "Ancestor, the previous sect leader trained me specifically for this. The time is right. I will make us famous." Han Yun and Yi Luo joined in, each claiming they were the best fit. There was only one seat, and 5 hungry wolves wanted it. Their cultivation levels were similar, and they all had different strengths. Qing Xian looked conflicted. He knew that growing a sect in a place as chaotic as the Demon County was nearly impossible. Outside, I took a deep breath. It was time. I prayed to every god I could remember from Earth. I turned toward the entrance. "What are you doing?" the other guard hissed, grabbing my arm. I looked at him and grinned. "I have urgent business for the Ancestor." Before he could process that, I walked right into the hall. Every step felt like I was walking toward a cliff. It was either heaven or hell. I looked up and saw the Ancestor for the first time. He was a dignified middle-aged man with sharp features and graying hair. He looked like he had been a handsome guy in his youth. All 6 powerhouses turned their gaze on me. I felt the weight of their stares, a crushing pressure that made my skin crawl. Inside, I was terrified they'd just kill me for interrupting. But on the outside, I bowed deeply. Disciple Sun E greets the ancestor and the 5 elders. Elder Jean Ju's brow furrowed. He was annoyed that such an important meeting was being interrupted by a nobody. What is it? He snapped. Speak. They all stared, waiting for some world-shaking report. Even the ancestor leaned in, thinking I had news of a crisis. I have one request, ancestor, I said, bowing deeply to Qing Xian. Please ensure my safety. Qing Xian looked at me with a calm, unreadable expression. Speak. As long as I am here, no one will harm you. I swallowed hard. That was exactly what I needed to hear. I thought to myself, you better mean that, old man, because the elders are going to want my head in about 30 seconds. I know the ancestor is here to appoint a new sect master for our Qingyun sect. I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. The responsibility is heavy. Therefore, I wish to nominate myself. I want to lead the sect, share the ancestors' burdens, and restore our glory to its peak. The hall went dead silent. The 6 powerhouses stared at me like I had grown a second head. A lowly level 3 Qi refining disciple, a literal nobody, was standing there, pitching himself for the highest office in the sect. It was unheard of in the entire history of the cultivation world. Elder Jinju was the first to snap. You bastard. You dare come here to cause trouble? You must be tired of living. He stepped forward, his face flushed with rage. An ant at the 3rd level of Qi refining coveting the sect master's throne? This is treason. You're looking for death. Elder Qin Chu let out a cold snort of disgust. Even the ancestor, Qing Xian, frowned. To him, I was a speck of dust. The idea of me competing for the position was beyond ridiculous. Sensing the killing intent rising in the room, I quickly bowed again, ignoring the crushing pressure. Ancestor, you are wise and unparalleled in this world. Please, just let me finish. If you find my words lacking, you can kill me or skin me alive as you see fit. I only ask for one chance to speak. Qing Xian's eyes flickered. My flattery, calling him wise and unparalleled, clearly hit the mark. He looked at me with a hint of genuine curiosity. He had lived for hundreds of years and had never seen a kid with this much nerve. Since he hadn't decided on a successor yet anyway, he figured there was no harm in listening to a madman. With a wave of his hand, he suppressed the angry elders. Quiet. Let him speak. The pressure lifted instantly. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My life was safe for now. This tightrope walk was terrifying, but it was working. Thank you, ancestor, I said. I knew Qing Xian was reasonable. He wouldn't kill me without a reason. Now that I had his ear, it was time for step 2, eliminating the competition. I turned toward the 5 elders. My plan was simple. Step 1, get the ancestors' attention. Step 2, disqualify the 5 golden core elders. Step 3, present my grand vision for the sect. What I am about to say may offend the elders, I said, glancing at them. I ask for your forgiveness in advance. In my opinion, while some people here have high cultivation, they are completely unfit to manage a sect. I looked directly at Elder Jinju. He glared back, his eyes bulging. You brat, why are you looking at me? You think I'm unfit? I shook my head and waved my hands dismissively. No, Elder Jinju. I'm not just talking about you. I'm saying that none of the 5 of you are fit to be sect master. If any of you take the lead, this sect will never grow. You arrogant little sh*t, one of them roared. You dare insult us? You're dead. The air in the hall vibrated with their fury. If the ancestor wasn't sitting right there, they would have torn me limb from limb. I felt their killing intent like cold needles against my skin, but I couldn't back down now. I had to go all in. I had to grab the ancestor's thigh and never let go. Let the storm rage, I thought. I turned my focus back to Jinju. Elder Jinju, let's start with you. Not only are you unfit to be sect master, but you've been a complete failure as the head of the Hall of Discipline. Jinju laughed, a harsh, angry sound. A level 3 brat judging me? I have served as the head of discipline for 20 years. I have been diligent and loyal. Give me one convincing reason why I am unfit, or I will turn your bones to ash. The ancestor watched us, clearly intrigued by my boldness. I wasn't afraid. As long as Qing Xian wanted to hear the end of the story, Jinju couldn't touch me. Elder Jinju, I said, my voice ringing out. What is the core principle of the Hall of Discipline? Fairness and justice, he snapped. I nodded. Exactly. Fairness, justice, and transparency. But have you actually done that? I'm questioning your integrity. Tell me, how long has it been since you actually stepped foot inside the Hall of Discipline? Your 3 disciples use your name to run wild. They bully other disciples, take bribes, and extort money. Do you honestly expect us to believe you haven't seen it? Lies. You're framing me. Jinju lunged toward me, his hand clawed to strike. Suddenly, a massive, overwhelming aura slammed down on him, pinning him to the spot. He couldn't move a finger. My heart skipped a beat. The world of cultivators was way too dangerous. Thank God for the ancestor. Qing Xian looked at me seriously. Do you realize the consequences of framing an elder? I do, ancestor, I said, pulling out a jade slip I had prepared. I haven't framed anyone. I've spent the last few days gathering evidence of their crimes. It's common knowledge among the lower disciples. If you don't believe me, you can call the victims here right now. I handed over the slip. With a flick of his finger, the ancestor brought the jade to his forehead. His expression darkened instantly. Jinju, the ancestor hissed, his voice cold as ice. Look at this. I had no idea you had turned the Hall of Discipline into such a filthy mess. The ancestor glared at Elder Jinju with pure disappointment. He tossed the jade slip toward him like it was a piece of trash. Jinju scrambled to catch it, his hands trembling as he scanned the contents. In an instant, the color drained from his face. He looked defeated. I had hit the nail on the head. He hadn't stepped foot in the Hall of Discipline for years. He'd left everything to his disciples, and they had turned it into a den of thieves. I watched him coldly. A man who couldn't even manage his own department had no business leading the entire Qingyun sect. The other 4 Golden Core elders didn't feel bad for him. In fact, they looked thrilled. To them, this just meant one less competitor for the sect leader position. They thought their chances just went up. I didn't give them time to celebrate. I turned my gaze toward Elder Qin Shu. Elder Qin Shu, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. As the head of internal affairs, you control the distribution of resources. It's a massive responsibility. Yet, you let your 2 disciples run the show. They've been skimming off the top and extorting the other disciples for years. The entire sect is bitter because of them. You've turned internal affairs into a swamp of corruption. And you think you're fit to be the leader? Lies. Qin Shu roared, pointing a finger at me. My disciples are hard-working and loyal. They would never steal from the sect. I didn't argue. I just pulled out another jade slip and held it up respectfully. It flew straight into the ancestor's hand. Inside was a detailed list of every disciple who had been cheated, along with dates and amounts. It was all there. The ancestor let out a cold snort. Qin Shu, look at the mess you've made. He threw the slip at Qin Shu's feet. The evidence was undeniable. One look at the names, and Qin Shu went pale. He didn't say another word. I ignored him and shifted my focus to Elderly Tai of the External Affairs Hall. He wasn't gloating anymore. When our eyes met, he looked like he wanted to bolt for the door. I could practically hear him screaming internally for me to stay away. The External Affairs Hall is the lifeblood of our sect, I shouted. It's where we get our resources and train our disciples. But what have your people been doing? They're selling favors. If a disciple pays a bribe, they get an easy task. If they don't, they get sent on suicide missions. Your negligence has caused the deaths of our own people. You are responsible for every single one of them. I produced a 3rd jade slip. After the ancestor read it, his face went completely black with rage. He threw it at Li Tai, who looked like he was about to collapse. Next was Elder Han Yun of the Hall of Propagation. He was a powerful Golden Core cultivator, but under my gaze, he looked like a cornered animal. His face was already white before I even opened my mouth. Elder Han Yun, I said slowly, you oversee the teachings of our sect. That is our foundation. 20 years ago, we suffered a great loss. We needed you to step up and train the next generation. But what did you actually do? Han Yun stammered. I didn't do anything wrong. Exactly, I snapped. You did nothing. In 20 years, how many foundation establishment cultivators have we gained? How much has the overall strength of our disciples improved? You haven't discovered a single new talent. Your hall has become nothing more than a place for managers to line their pockets. You failed as an elder. I handed over the fourth slip. The ancestor's expression grew even darker. Hanyan looked like he'd seen a ghost. He truly hadn't realized how rotten his department had become. Finally, I looked at Elder Yi Luo. He didn't even try to fight it. He just closed his eyes and accepted his fate. He'd seen what happened to the others. He knew I had something for him too. Elder Yi Luo, you run the labor hall, I said. It's been a long time since you actually checked on your workers, hasn't it? Pills, talismans, spiritual tools. The labor hall is our economy. But under your watch, it has fallen into ruin. If you can't manage a group of laborers, how can you manage a sect? I presented the final jade slip. As the ancestor read it, a look of profound loneliness crossed his face. He hadn't realized his sect had decayed this much in just 2 decades. Yi Luo remained silent, unable to offer a single excuse. I had taken them down one by one. 5 golden core elders, silenced by a disciple at the 3rd level of chi refining. But I wasn't done. It was time to stop the surgical strikes and go for the finishing blow. I had to go all in. If I didn't become the sect leader today, these men would kill me tomorrow. I took a deep breath. My gaze sharpened. I tapped into my old memories of being chewed out by bosses and flipped the script. 20 years. I yelled. For 20 years, what have you 5 actually done? What have you contributed to this sect? Nothing. You spent all your energy on internal power struggles. You fought each other while the sect withered away. Ask yourselves, do you honestly think you have the right to lead? I stepped forward, my voice booming. Even if the ancestor picked one of you today, do you have the ability to lead us back to glory? No. You only care about the chair. You want the title so you can hoard more resources for yourselves. You don't care about the Qingyan sect. You only care about your own greed. The elders were shaking with rage. If looks could kill, I would have been turned into ash 100 times over. But even a cornered rat will bite. We are elders. Jinju barked, finding his voice. We care about the sect. We would have made it stronger. He's right. Qinshu added, his face flushed with anger. Everyone makes mistakes. How can you be so sure we wouldn't have changed once we took the lead? Li Tai was the next to speak up, his voice dripping with disdain as he glared at me. You say we aren't fit to be sect leader? You're just a piece of trash at the 3rd level of chi refining. If 5 golden core experts aren't qualified, what makes a bug like you think he is? Hanyan followed suit with a cold sneer. He's right. We are golden core cultivators. If we can't lead, a low-level nobody like you certainly can't. Finally, Yi Luo looked at me with a mocking smile. Even if we aren't chosen, you don't have the status. If word got out that a chi refining disciple took charge, the entire cultivation world would laugh the Qing Yun sect into extinction. I looked over at the ancestor, Qing Xian. He was frowning, his eyes darting between me and the elders. I could tell he was finally seeing how deep the rot went. Choosing a successor was proving much harder than he expected. I looked at the 5 elders, who were practically foaming at the mouth. I let out a short, contemptuous laugh. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean I can't. As for people laughing, let them. Once I make this sect powerful, we'll just beat whoever laughed at us. If one beating doesn't shut them up, we'll beat them again. I stepped closer, my voice steady. Cultivation level and leadership are 2 different things. Does a sect leader need to do all the fighting personally? If I can grow the sect, I could be a commoner with 0 power and still be a better leader than any of you. The room went silent. I could see the ancestor looking at me with genuine interest. He had never heard anyone talk like this before. I was a wild card, and he liked it. Jinju broke the silence with a harsh, angry laugh. You talk a big game. How do you plan to prove it? I smiled, looking them all in the eye. Fine. Let me ask you a few questions. What do you think of our current location? Does it have potential? How should we grow? What are the obstacles, and how do we fix them? The elders went quiet. None of them had an answer. Even the ancestor looked thoughtful, wondering where I was going with this. I didn't let the silence last. I turned directly to Jinju. Elder Jinju, do you have the courage to share your insight? Or are you empty-headed? There's nothing to say. Jinju barked. To our west is the 10,000 demon forest, filled with beasts eyeing our territory. To the north is the endless ice field, a frozen wasteland. To the south is the endless sea, crawling with sea demons. And to the east, the storm mountains cut us off from the other provinces. We are trapped in a 4-way dead end. He gestured wildly. Most of the resources in this region have already been snatched up by Blackwind Fortress and Evil Spirit Valley. Development is impossible. This place is a curse. So, you think our location is a death trap with no future? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Of course it is. Jinju snapped. Why else would our sect be stuck in this dump? I looked at the other four. Do you all agree? It's obvious, Chu grumbled. Only a fool wouldn't see it. If we had any other choice, we wouldn't be here, Li Tai added. Yiluo stared at me, his eyes narrowing. Do you actually have a different opinion? I'd love to hear your brilliant take. Everyone, including the ancestor, fixed their gaze on me. I suppressed a smirk. I had them exactly where I wanted them. In my eyes, I declared, this isn't a dead end. This is a God-given treasure trove. Nonsense, Jinju shouted. The others sneered. Even the ancestor looked skeptical. I didn't flinch. Do you know what a crisis is? It's a danger wrapped around an opportunity. Yes, the forest is dangerous, but it's full of demon cores, materials, and rare herbs. The ice field and the endless sea are the same. We are surrounded by 3 massive resource hubs that can provide endless materials and a perfect training ground for our disciples. How is that not a treasure? I paused for rhythm. As for our rivals, Blackwind Fortress and Evil Spirit Valley only have 1 nascent soul cultivator each. Once we are strong enough to wipe them out, the entire region is ours. We won't even have to compete with the great sects. We'll be kings of our own domain. You're delusional, Jinju scoffed. The 10,000 Demon Forest isn't a grocery store. It's the most dangerous forbidden zone on the continent. The beasts won't just stand there and let you kill them. I looked at them with pity. You think it's dangerous because your spiritual sense is useless there. You step inside, you're blind, and you get ambushed. Isn't that right? Everyone knows that, Jinju retorted. Even a golden core cultivator is asking for death if they wander in there. I shook my head slowly. The forest hides the beasts, sure. But if our disciples could detect them before they attacked, if we could effectively see again, would the danger still exist? I knew the forest's secret. Spiritual sense was blocked, but technology didn't care about spiritual interference. Over the last 3 days, I hadn't just been investigating corruption. I had been calculating how to build a radar system using the materials available in this world. If we could use our senses, of course it would be safer, Yiluo sneered. But can you do it? Can you make the impossible possible? I can, I said, my voice ringing with absolute confidence. I've already designed a treasure that can replace spiritual sense and neutralize the danger of the forbidden zones. I just need a little time to build it. I turned my back on the elders and looked at the ancestor. This is why these men are unfit to lead. A true sect leader doesn't run from a problem. He solves it. Ancestor Qing Xian looked at me with deep skepticism. I was just a low-level disciple at the 3rd level of Qi refining. To him, the idea of me solving the sensory limitations of the forbidden zones was absurd. Can you really create a treasure that replaces spiritual sense? The ancestor asked. How is that possible for someone of your level? I can, I said, meeting his gaze. But I need time. And I need the full support of the sect. The ancestor leaned forward, his interest piqued. If I gave you a chance, how long would it take? And how exactly would you do it? I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. If you give me this chance, I will solve the problem within 1 year. 1 year is nothing to someone of your stature, ancestor. But I need you to back me completely. The ancestor's expression became unreadable. He looked at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. 1 year is indeed short. I don't mind giving you a chance to prove yourself. Tell me, what kind of support do you need? I took a deep breath. I need absolute authority. I need to be second only to you in this sect. And I need full control over the sect's resources. The room exploded. The 5 golden core elders looked like they were about to have a stroke. No, absolutely not, Jinju shouted, stepping forward. You're a common laborer at the 3rd level of Qi refining. How dare you demand such power? Giving that much power to a minor cultivator is a disaster waiting to happen. Qinshu added, his voice trembling with rage. Ancestor, don't listen to this boy's nonsense. Authority is a serious matter. Li Tai, Han Yun, and Yi Luo all chimed in, their faces pale. They knew exactly what this meant. If the ancestor gave me that power, they would have to take orders from me. To them, that was a fate worse than death. The ancestor frowned. He had already given up on these 5 as leaders, but making me the new sect leader was a massive gamble. It was unheard of. Yet, everything I said made sense. To him, a year was just a blink of an eye. He was tempted, but he still hesitated. I saw the doubt in his eyes and pushed harder. Ancestor, if I become the sect leader, I must reform the Qing Yun sect. Reform means stepping on toes. It means taking away the privileges of people who have grown fat and lazy. Without your absolute backing, these reforms will fail before they start. I need to wake this sect up. I need to make it unrecognizable within months. Reform. The ancestor's eyes lit up. Tell me more. I nodded firmly. The Qing Yun sect has reached a point where it must change or die. Once I am leader, I will implement several major changes that will face massive resistance. Like what? The ancestor asked, his curiosity winning out. The 5 elders stared at me, their eyes filled with venom. They couldn't attack me with the ancestor standing right there, so they just watched, seething. I stood tall and raised my voice so everyone in the hall could hear. First, we redefine the sect rules. I have 10 new laws. I began to list them off, my voice ringing with authority. 1. Betray the sect, and you die. 2. Betray the human race, and you die. 3. Harm your fellow disciples, and you face soul-refining torture or death. 4. Harm innocent civilians, and you face the same. 5. Rape or pillage, and you face soul-refining torture or death. 6. Bully the weak using your status, and you will be punished. 7. Intentionally cause loss to the sect's interests, and you will be punished. 8. Kill others to steal their treasures, and you face soul-refining torture or death. 9. Collude with enemies, and you die. 10. Desert your comrades in battle, and you face soul-refining torture. I looked around the room. These 10 rules will be carved into stone monuments and placed in the sect square. Everyone, from the elders down to the lowest disciple, will follow them. Jinju let out a cold, mocking laugh. Killing to take treasure is the way of the world. It's survival of the fittest. That is the fundamental rule of the cultivation world. Why should we punish it? I looked at him with pure disdain. That might be the way of the world, but it won't be the way of the Qing Yun sect. I want our disciples to have integrity. I want us united. If everyone is busy stabbing each other in the back for a few spirit stones, how can we ever stand together? We need a stable environment to grow. I turned back to the ancestor. He was smiling. There was a glimmer of genuine admiration in his eyes. I felt a wave of relief. From what I knew, the ancestor was an upright man who cared deeply for the sect's legacy. These rules were exactly what he wanted to hear. Is there more? The ancestor asked. Much more, I replied. Next, I am abolishing the monthly allowance system. No more free spirit stones or pills just for existing. What? Jinju gasped. You're cutting off our resources? The other 4 elders looked like they wanted to murder me right then and there. I had just aimed a blade directly at their throats. Yes, I said firmly. The entire ranking system is changing. From now on, there are no inner disciples, outer disciples, or laborers. Everyone is equal. If you want resources, you work for them. No more lying around and soaking up the sect's wealth. The Qing Yun sect was like a failing state-owned enterprise. It had no vitality. It was time to break the iron rice bowl. I know the sect has illusion arrays for training, I continued. I want the ancestor to help me build 3 battle towers. 1 for chi refining, 1 for foundation establishment, and 1 for golden core. Each tower will have 100 floors. You pass a floor, you earn points. You want resources? You fight for them. We will rank everyone by their points, and those at the top get the most support. We will breed a culture of combat. If you want more points, you can also complete sect missions or contribute rare materials. Talent doesn't grant you a free pass anymore. Everyone starts at the bottom. Naive. Jinju spat. You want to treat geniuses like commoners? I've never heard of anything so ridiculous. You're making a mockery of cultivation. No sect in the world treats geniuses and commoners the same. Jinju snorted. He crossed his arms, his face a mask of total disagreement. If you run things this recklessly, what happens when the talented disciples leave? They'll flock to our rivals. I looked him dead in the eye. Leave? Where would they go? I didn't wait for his answer. There are only 3 top-tier powers in this region. Aside from us, the other 2 are demonic sects. Do you really think they dare to join them? If they want to leave, let them. They'll regret it soon enough. If a few people walk away because they lose their special privileges, they aren't worth keeping anyway. I turned back to the ancestor. Separating the gifted from the average is how every sect operates. It has benefits, sure, but it has massive flaws. High talent just means you cultivate faster and use resources more efficiently. It doesn't mean you're stronger in a real fight. More importantly, it doesn't mean you're loyal. I paused to let that sink in. In the cultivation world, how many times have we seen a mediocre cultivator crush a genius? Most cultivators in the world have average talent. My reform doesn't favor the weak. It just gives everyone a fair shot. Whether they become dragons or stay worms is up to them. As for the geniuses, if they actually work hard, they'll earn even more resources than the crumbs they were getting before. Competition breeds progress. If a genius loses to a commoner on an even playing field, they should be ashamed, not coddled. Ancestor Qing Yun watched me, the approval in his eyes growing. I could see I was winning him over. It was time to keep the momentum going. I wasn't just talking, I was rebuilding a broken machine. I will digitize, or rather, monetize, every resource into a point system, I continued. Spirit stones, pills, cultivation rooms, even guidance from seniors. Everything will cost points. And to fuel growth, I'll introduce a lending service. Lending. The elders looked confused. It's simple, I explained. We lend points to disciples so they can buy the resources they need to break through right now. Once their cultivation level rises, their ability to earn points increases. They pay us back with interest later. The sect earns a profit, and the disciples get stronger faster. It's a win-win cycle. The ancestors' eyes lit up. Even the 5 elders looked stunned. They weren't idiots. They saw the potential for massive growth immediately. Once the points are in place, I said, my voice turning cold, I will abolish every current management position. I'll pick new leaders from the entire sect based on one thing: competence. Background and cultivation level won't matter. If you're good at the job, you stay. We'll review everyone every 5 years. If you perform well, you get promoted. If you're mediocre, you stay where you are. If you fail to do your duty, you're fired. The elders' faces turned black. First, I wanted their money. Now, I was coming for their power. They looked ready to explode, but the ancestor was actually smiling. I like it, the ancestor said, nodding. It sounds very interesting. He didn't have management experience, but he knew the sect was dying. Giving me a year to try this didn't seem like a big risk to him. I felt a surge of triumph. My seat as the new sect leader was almost secured. I just had to push a little further. Is there more? The ancestor asked. Of course, I replied. I plan to open the library pavilion to everyone. All manuals and techniques will be free to read. The ancestor blinked. Free? No points required. Exactly. Let every disciple find the cultivation path that fits them best. It will broaden their horizons, increase their strength rapidly, and build massive loyalty. We shouldn't be making a profit off our own people's growth. However, I added, seeing the ancestors' hesitation, the top-tier secret techniques will only be partially open. To get the full version, you have to pass a strict loyalty and skill test. The ancestor nodded slowly. That makes sense. Finally, I said, we need to encourage innovation. Our labor hall is failing because our products suck. We can't compete with the 7-star pavilion. They have a bigger brand. If a cultivator sees 2 identical chi gathering pills, they'll choose the 7-star version every time because they trust the name. To beat them, we need unique products. We need to reward our people for creating things the world has never seen before. For example, we need to develop our own core technologies. I continued, my voice steady. We should create pills that restore spiritual energy faster or increase the success rate of breakthroughs. We can't just stop at pills, either. Talismans, tools, everything needs innovation. If we want the labor hall to thrive, we need products that belong only to the Qing Yun sect. I looked toward the elders. I also plan to implement a ranking system for the disciples in the labor hall. The higher their rank, the better their rewards. Eventually, I want to reward anyone who creates a new technique or secret art. If a disciple innovates, we shower them with resources. Old ancestor Qing Xian nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. He looked genuinely intrigued. A very interesting thought, he murmured. Humph, just grandstanding to get attention. Elder Jean Ju grumbled, unable to keep quiet any longer. I turned to him, wearing a calm smile. Elder Jean Ju, let me ask you, what do you think is the most important factor for a sect's development? He didn't hesitate. Talented cultivators, obviously. The more geniuses we recruit, the stronger the sect becomes. I shook my head and wagged my finger at him. Wrong. Completely wrong. His face flushed with anger, but I didn't let him speak. The most important thing for a sect is resources, I said firmly. In other words, wealth. Spirit stones. Money. Everything in our treasury is the lifeblood of this sect. Imagine if our wealth increased tenfold, 100-fold, or even 10,000-fold. What would that look like? I leaned in, lowering my voice. With that kind of wealth, you five could probably break through to the nascent soul stage without a second thought. With enough resources, what kind of talent couldn't we attract? I saw their eyes light up. The lure of the nascent soul stage was like a drug to them. But the light faded quickly as they realized I was just painting a picture. Our current income was pathetic, and our expenses were draining us dry. It sounds simple, Elder Hanyan said coldly. But getting those resources isn't easy. I shrugged. Of course it's not. But we can't just stop because it's hard. I'm going to build something I call a detection radar. If it works, it will replace spiritual sense in forbidden zones, allowing us to harvest resources where others can't even step. Once the labor hall creates products that can't be replaced, we win. Detection radar? What kind of nonsense is that? The elders scoffed. They looked at me like I was a madman. A chi refining level 3 disciple claiming he could build a treasure to rival spiritual sense? It sounded like a fever dream. I ignored their mockery and moved to my next point. Once the internal reforms are done, I need the elders to lead teams to clear out the Chaos Demon County. We need to unify the entire region. Every human city will have a Qing Yun disciple stationed there to protect the people and solve their problems. I paced the room, my mind racing. We will build a square in the center of every city. There, we'll erect monuments engraved with the first half of our sect's cultivation techniques. Let the common people practice. Our disciples will give regular lectures to help them understand the basics. What? Elder Yi Luo's eyes nearly popped out of his head. You want us, immortal cultivators, to guard lowly mortals? Do you think unifying the county is easy? Black Wind Stronghold and Evil Spirit Valley aren't just for show. The others looked just as shocked. Even the ancestors seemed confused. I sighed inwardly. That was the problem with the cultivation world. These people saw mortals as ants, not even worth a glance, let alone their protection. I fixed my gaze on Elder Yi Luo. Lowly mortals? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. I think you've forgotten that you were a mortal once too. What right do you have to look down on them? I'm different, Yi Luo snapped, his chin lifting. I come from a cultivation family. And where did your family come from? I shot back. Didn't it start with a mortal who worked hard? A cultivator should never forget their roots. Mortals are the foundation of any sect. I looked at the ancestor, then back at the elders. By protecting these cities and teaching the people, we build an unshakable foundation. When we eventually recruit disciples from those places, they will be loyal. They'll love this sect because we protected their homes and their families. They will see themselves as part of us. I paused to let that sink in. I've checked the records. For 100 years, we've recruited geniuses who either got lured away by other sects or abandoned us during wars. What use is talent without loyalty? We've wasted enough resources on ungrateful wolves. From now on, loyalty comes first. Then perseverance. Talent comes last. I turned my full attention to the ancestor, my voice filled with fake, heavy admiration. I've heard that the ancestor himself has a top-tier spiritual root. Many sects tried to poach him with massive bribes, but he stayed. He was loyal. He saw himself as a part of Qing Yun, no matter how hard things got. We need more people like the ancestor, men of integrity and spirit. If our disciples are like him, how could we not prosper? I caught a glimpse of the ancestor's face. He was beaming. My blatant flattery was working like a charm. He looked like he was floating on air. I've buttered you up this much. I thought, you better give me that sect leader position. The ancestor stood up, his aura suddenly towering and majestic. Well said. I almost forgot. When I was a mortal, my village was hit by a flood. My family was in despair until my master passed by and saved them. That's why I never left. This sect is my home. He looked at me with genuine approval. Son E, your decision to protect the mortals is excellent. I support it. Since you have the vision and the ability, I'll give you this chance. You are the new sect leader. My heart leaped, but he wasn't finished. You have 1 year. If you don't meet my expectations, I'll personally kick you off that throne. But, he added, his expression turning serious, unifying Chaos Demon County won't be easy. Blackwind Stronghold and Evil Spirit Valley are just as strong as we are. Do you actually have a plan to deal with them? I was ecstatic. My heart pounded against my ribs as I looked at the ancestor. My plan was working. Don't worry, ancestor, I said, keeping my voice steady and confident. I have a plan. But before we can protect the mortal cities and build a true foundation for the sect, we have to deal with Blackwind Stronghold and Evil Spirit Valley. My position as sect leader was finally secure. Small goal achieved. I had successfully latched onto the ancestor's thigh. With his backing, who in the Qingyun sect would dare to cross me now? However, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I glanced at the 5 golden core elders. Their faces were dark, their eyes brimming with murderous intent. I knew that if I didn't get their support, I wouldn't just struggle to run the sect. I wouldn't survive the night. I'd hit them with a stick. Now, it was time to give them a carrot. In this world, even blood enemies can become partners if the profit is high enough. I had spent so much energy scheming for this position. I wasn't about to let these 5 old men ruin me before I even started. I turned to the ancestor and bowed deeply. Thank you for this opportunity, ancestor. I won't let you down. The ancestor nodded, looking satisfied. Good. I hope you keep your word. I'll let you lead, but I'm going to place a restriction seal inside your body. If you try any tricks, the consequences will be dire. Please, go ahead. I replied without a second thought. Having your seal inside me actually makes me feel safer. I didn't care. With my low cultivation, I was dead anyway if you wanted me dead. If a seal made them trust me enough to let me fix this place, it was a small price to pay. The ancestor waved his hand. A streak of cold energy shot into my chest, settling deep within my core. He looked at me calmly. What is your first move? I smiled, acting as if the seal didn't exist. First, I'd like to have a heart-to-heart with the 5 elders. The ancestor blinked in surprise. The elders snorted in unison. Their expressions said it all. The only thing they wanted to tell me was how they planned to kill me. I know you all want to tear me into 1,000 pieces, I said, my voice calm as a still pond. As long as you know, Elder Jinju muttered. The moment we're out of here, we'll find a way to deal with you. I ignored the threat. I looked them in the eye. Let me ask you one thing. With your current cultivation and the sect's current resources, what are your chances of reaching the nascent soul stage? That silenced them. They were all stuck in the middle of the golden core stage. It looked close, but the gap to nascent soul was like a canyon. Without a massive stroke of luck, they were at their limit. They only wanted the sect leader position to hoard more resources for a desperate attempt. Even then, their odds were slim. Even if one of you became the leader today, it would still be nearly impossible, wouldn't it? I challenged. And what? Elder Jean Ju sneered. Are you saying that if you're the leader, we'll have a chance? Exactly, I said, my voice full of pride. If you support me and follow my lead, I guarantee you'll all get your shot at the nascent soul stage. Huh? With what? Elder Qin Shu barked. You're a level 3 Qi refinement nobody. How could you possibly give us that? Even the ancestor looked skeptical. Give me 1 year, I declared. In 1 year, I will transform this sect. I will increase our wealth and provide you with more resources than you've ever seen. If I fail, you can do whatever you want with me. You can pick a new leader. 1 year is a blink of an eye to cultivators like you. If I fail, you lose nothing but a few months. But if I succeed, think about the rewards. I watched them closely. I could see the gears turning. Their anger was being replaced by greed. Before they could argue, the ancestor spoke up. What are you afraid of? It's just 1 year. Can't you wait that long? Elder Jinju was the first to cave. He bowed to the ancestor. I'm willing to give him a chance. I'll give him a year, Qinshu added. I'll gamble on him too, said Li Tai. Han Yun and Yi Luo followed suit. They all wanted to see if I could actually deliver on such a wild promise. Success. I had neutralized the biggest threats. With these 6 powerhouses behind me, no one else in the sect would dare to bark. Thank you for your trust, I said. Now let's talk business. Ancestor, I need you to oversee the creation of the battle tower. I've written down the requirements here. I handed him a jade slip. He scanned it, his eyebrows knitting together. These requirements are high. You want specific people stationed inside to give scores. You want the illusions to be nearly indistinguishable from reality? This will be expensive and difficult. I know you can do it, I said. We can adapt the old trial grounds. Can you have it ready in 2 months? I can, the ancestor replied. Leave it to me. I turned to Elder Jinju. Elder, I want you to remain in charge of the discipline hall. The elders looked stunned. Jinju frowned. I thought you wanted us gone. I shook my head. The discipline hall is the soul of the sect. It needs a prestigious elder. You are the right fit. However, from now on, you must follow my new code. No more favoritism. No more looking the other way. Every past crime by a disciple must be handled. Can you guarantee that? Jinju hesitated, thinking of his own followers, but then he remembered our deal. He nodded firmly. I promise. There will be no more corruption in the discipline hall. Don't worry, Elder Jinju, I said, my voice steady. As for the disciples under your wing, we'll handle their past mistakes with a light touch this time. Consider it a fresh start. I turned my gaze toward Elder Chin Chu. Elder Chin, I'm going to need your help at the Internal Affairs Hall. I want you to oversee the transition to our new resource point system. No one knows the sect's assets better than you. Honestly, I can't think of anyone else I'd trust with this. Chin Chu stroked his sparse beard, looking surprised. A small, proud smile tugged at his lips. He probably thought I held him in high regard, because his eyes softened instantly. Very well, he said. I will give you my full cooperation. Next, I looked at Elder Li Tai and Elder Han Yun. The unification of the Luanyao region is the key to our future. I need both of you to lead that effort. If we succeed, your names will be etched into the sect's history books as the heroes who sparked our rise. We aren't in a rush, though. We'll execute the plan once the Black Wind Fortress and Evil Spirit Valley are dealt with. The idea of eternal fame clearly hit the mark. Their resentment vanished, replaced by a look of hungry ambition. They didn't even seem to care that I'd just promised to wipe out 2 of the most dangerous factions in the region. Finally, I turned to Elder Yi Luo. He was practically vibrating with anticipation. I gave him a warm smile. Elder Yi, you will continue to lead the labor hall. But from now on, that hall is going to be our treasury. You're going to be the god of wealth for the Qingyun sect. Yi Luo beamed. First, I continued, we need to manufacture new identity tokens for every member. I have specific requirements. I handed him a jade slip. Yi Luo was so high on the praise that he didn't even blink. Rest easy, he promised. For the next year, I'll support whatever you want to do. Just say the word. I looked at their glowing faces. A few minutes ago, these men wanted me dead. Now, they were my biggest supporters. It turns out sect politics is just like any other business. It's all about ego and interests. I had finally handled the big players. It hadn't been easy. Now, I needed to build my radar system. But before that, I had to increase my own strength and knowledge. I turned to the ancestor and bowed. Ancestor, that's all for now. Please, gather everyone. It's time to start the reform. The news spread like wildfire. Every disciple in the Qingyun sect was on edge, especially the followers of the 5 elders. They knew that if their master became the leader, they'd be set for life. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the mountains, vibrating in everyone's ears. All disciples, from the inner circle to the lowly laborers, gather at the central square within 30 minutes. The sect erupted. Streaks of light filled the sky as cultivators flew toward the square. The labor disciples, who couldn't fly, scrambled on foot. They were confused. Usually, the sect didn't care about them. Even when leaders changed in the past, the laborers were never invited. Over at Qingmu Peak, my friend Guzi was frantic. He ran around looking for me, his face red with frustration. Where is that idiot hiding now? He muttered, stomping his foot. He's going to get in trouble. Fine, he's just a laborer. Maybe they won't notice if he's missing. He gave up and ran toward the square alone. The square was packed. At the very front stood the 500 inner disciples, looking down their noses at everyone else. Behind them were over 1,000 outer disciples, their eyes filled with a mix of awe for those in front and contempt for those behind. At the very back stood the 2,000 laborers, the largest and most ragged group. For them, becoming even an outer disciple was a dream that felt impossible. In total, for 1,000 disciples and 200 staff members waited in hushed anticipation. "I bet it's Elder Jean Ju," one inner disciple whispered. "He's been running the discipline hall for 50 years. He's the ancestors' direct student." "No way," another argued. "Elder Qin Chu knows the sect's business better than anyone. It has to be him." "You're both wrong," a third chimed in. Elderly Tai was the old leader's favorite. "He's the chosen one." The arguments grew heated. Some disciples were nearly ready to trade blows over whose master would take the throne. Guzi searched the crowd of laborers, still hoping to see me. When he couldn't find me, he sighed and prayed I wouldn't be punished. The 30-minute mark hit. A heavy bell tolled, silencing the crowd. Everyone looked up at the great hall. 6 streaks of light descended. The ancestor and the 5 golden core elders landed on the high platform, their powerful auras washing over the square like a physical weight. But there was someone else with them. I stood right next to the ancestor, looking out over the sea of faces. It was my first time flying, and honestly, it felt amazing, even if it was a little terrifying. Way in the back, Guzi's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was hallucinating. He slapped himself hard across the face. When he looked up again, I was still there. I wasn't hiding in the grass. I was standing on the stage where only gods were supposed to walk. I stood right there next to Ancestor Qing Xian, looking down at the crowd. I could see Guzi in the back, his mouth hanging open. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was wondering what the hell I was doing up there. He probably suspected I'd actually gone through with my crazy plan to run for sect leader, but his brain refused to accept it. It wasn't just him, though. Every single disciple in the square was staring at me. The inner and outer disciples had no clue who I was. A few of the laborers recognized me, but they looked like they'd seen a ghost. I looked out over the sea of cultivators. There were fewer people here than at my old university back home. Their uniforms were a mess, and they looked exhausted and defeated. They lacked spirit. I frowned. This had to change. Ancestor Qing Xian stood beside me, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions. He remembered when the Qing Yun sect had over 100,000 disciples. Now, there were barely 4,000 left. We were on the brink of collapse. Without him, we wouldn't even qualify as a top-tier sect anymore. Aside from him, there were only 5 golden core elders left. If he died, the sect died with him. He looked at me, remembering my promise to turn this place into a treasure land. He didn't really believe it. He thought this territory was a death trap, but he was desperate. He needed a miracle. The ancestor took a deep breath. His voice boomed across the square, vibrating in everyone's chest. "I am Qing Xian," he announced. "Today, I officially declare that Sun Yi is the new sect leader of the Qing Yun sect. Everyone, from the Golden Core elders down to the lowest disciple, must obey his commands. Anyone who defies him will be punished according to the new laws." The silence that followed was absolute. The entire square went numb. This wasn't the result anyone expected. Guzi's mind went completely blank. I could almost hear him questioning his own existence. But I didn't give them time to process it. Elder Jean Ju stepped forward first. "I will fully support the sect leader's reforms," he shouted. "Anyone who dares to disobey will face the discipline hall." Then came Elder Qin Chu. "From this day forward, the sect leader is the supreme authority. Even I must follow his lead. Do not test us." One by one, they stepped up. Li Tai, Han Yun, and finally Yi Luo. They all pledged their absolute loyalty in front of the entire sect. With the ancestors' decree and the 5 elders backing me, my position was untouchable. The disciples started whispering frantically. They were trying to figure out who Sun Yi was. Some thought I was a hidden master who had secretly defeated the 5 elders to take the throne. The inner disciples were convinced I was some legendary powerhouse. Even the outer disciples started looking at me with awe. However, the few laborers who actually knew me had very different expressions. My creditors were wondering if they should just forget the money I owed them. But the person who looked the worst was Manager Wang. He was my direct supervisor, The man who had spent months making my life a living hell. His face was paper white, and he was shaking so hard I thought he might collapse. The ancestor waved his hand, and a massive pressure descended, instantly silencing the crowd. "Now," he said, "the sect leader will address you." I stepped forward with a calm smile. It felt just like being a student representative back in college. "Hello everyone," I began. "I am Sun E, your new sect leader. I know most of you don't know me. And honestly, when I tell you who I am, you're going to be shocked." I paused for effect. "I am a common laborer. My cultivation is only at the 3rd level of chi condensation. In terms of strength, I am weaker than almost everyone standing here." The square exploded. People were shouting, gasping, and rubbing their eyes. A laborer? A level 3 weakling? It was insane. I let the noise die down before I continued. "Don't be surprised, and don't be jealous. Many people want this position, but how many are willing to put their lives on the line for it? Being sect leader isn't just about power, it's about responsibility. I have made a blood oath to the ancestor and the elders. I have 1 year to make this sect powerful. If I fail, I will pay with my life. Would any of you dare to make that deal?" The silence returned, but this time it was heavy. No one spoke. They knew they wouldn't have the guts to gamble their lives like that. "Because of this," I said, my voice turning cold, "I will be implementing a total reform of the sect. Do not challenge my patience. Unless you think you are stronger than the ancestor or the elders, you will obey. First, we change the laws. Ancestor, if you please." I turned and bowed to Qing Xian. He nodded, his aura erupting. He reached into the air, and a massive hand of golden energy formed, ripping a gargantuan rock from the edge of the square. He crushed it with a single grip, then reshaped the fragments. Within seconds, a massive stone monument, 30 meters high and 10 meters wide, slammed into the ground, ready for the new laws of the Qing Yun sect. I watched the massive stone monument settle into the earth, my eyes wide with a mix of awe and ambition. I promised myself right then that one day, I would become as powerful as Ancestor Qing Xian. With a flick of his finger, 9 streaks of azure sword light erupted from the ancestor's body. The air grew heavy with a terrifying, heaven-shaking intent. The sword beams danced across the stone surface, carving out the 10 new sect rules I had drafted. Every disciple in the square leaned forward, squinting to read the fresh inscriptions. As the words became clear, the crowd gasped. The silence was replaced by a wave of disbelief. These rules were stricter than anything they had ever known. They were confused and shocked, but no one dared to protest. This was the ancestors' handiwork. Most terrifying of all was the new standard punishment, soul refining. Every cultivator knew that pain. It was a fate worse than death. I stepped forward and pointed at the towering stone. "The rules are set," I shouted, my voice echoing across the plaza. "Every one of you must remember them. Anyone who dares to break them will be punished without mercy." I didn't stop there. I had a list. Jin Luan of the Discipline Hall, Su Bo, Zhang Dehai, Lu Wen, Luo Tao. Step forward now. The 5 men froze. They were all Foundation establishment cultivators, far stronger than me. They didn't want to move, but under the ancestors' watchful eye, they had no choice. They shuffled to the front of the crowd, looking like criminals headed for the gallows. I stared them down. I was just a level 3 chi condensation weakling, but I didn't feel a flicker of fear. My gaze was cold and unwavering. They were the ones who looked uneasy. They could sense the storm coming. "I have checked the records," I announced, my voice ringing with authority. "During your time in office, you 5 used your positions to bully your fellow disciples. You twisted the law for profit. You stole wealth that wasn't yours." I took a breath, letting the weight of my new title settle over the square. "As the new sect leader of the Qing Yun sect, I am handing down your sentences. First, you are stripped of your positions as Vice Hall Masters. Second, you will undergo 30 days of soul refining." The 5 men turned pale. 30 days. They would be lucky to have half a life left after that. "Furthermore," I continued, "you will return every single stone you stole. You will apologize to every disciple you oppressed. You will pay them restitution. If you don't have enough resources, find someone to borrow from. I don't care how you do it, but the victims will be paid in full." The reaction was instant. The 5 men looked like they were about to collapse. But the rest of the square erupted. Disciples who had been bullied for years were cheering. Some were even crying with joy. They had hated these 5 for a long time, but had been too afraid to speak up. In one single move, I had won the hearts of the people. This was only the beginning.